And good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on niche marketing, how to attract profitable new business. And my name is Clifton Warren, and I'm the principal of Corporate Eye Consulting. This topic is probably, I say all topics are my favorite. This one's my most demand type topic. I find a lot of professionals, particularly insurance brokers, and some advisors, a lot of other wealth advisors and banks, they have particular niche markets. They might have been in there for a while. They might have been historical, but they certainly want to be able to develop and penetrate those more effectively than what they have. And so today's topic is just about that. And I want to discuss basically how to select your ideal niche market. And if you already have one, how do you make the decision whether that's the right market for you to pursue or develop or abandon? Secondly, we're going to discuss how to develop your insider niche market knowledge. This is so you can be seen as someone special to the people within that niche market. How do you go about positioning yourself within there? So you're not just another vendor. You're not just another provider. You're actually someone special that actually has something unique to offer this particular marketplace. Third, we're going to look at how to get organized to sense, serve, and satisfy the needs. Because this is a sales business, but at the end of the day. And so you can have the great niche markets, but the ultimate goal is to convert the niche prospects and the niche clients, or is to, if you're already operating that niche, is to further penetrate that niche and increase your market share. And finally, how to get your phone ringing, how to get people coming to you, how do you get them to raise their hand and say, look, we have a problem we think you can help us with. So the fourth area we're going to talk about is promoting your products and services, within your niche market to get the results that you want to gain. Now, the first step is selecting your target niche market. And there are 6 steps to choosing a niche market. We're going to unpack each of these in a little bit more detail. But first is making that strategic decision about the niche where you want to pursue. Next is having a selection process so they can choose the right niche for you. By the way, depending on the size of your firm, the ideal size of niche, the number of niche markets that you should have, if you are a single operator, a solo operator, you should have 1 to 3 niches. If you're a larger firm, you can multiply that by the number of producers that you have. So a firm with, let's say, 4 producers can really be operating up to 8 to 12 niches, 3 per person. The reason why I choose 3, that's a good number, is that it gives you enough time and what I call counterbalancing cycles. So for instance, accountants you cannot talk to from about July to December because they're too busy doing tax returns here in the Northern Hemisphere. Sorry, in the Southern Hemisphere. In the Northern Hemisphere, really from April till about September, you can't talk to accountants. Therefore, if that's your marketplace, you actually need another market to counterbalance that. And that's why you have 2 to 3 markets. And the research that's involved is quite extensive. So you don't want to have bite off more than what you can chew. Third step is developing your ideal client profile. And what you want to do there is and we're going to unpack this a little bit further, is really making sure you're going after the types of targets you want to go after. That's having some sort of selection criteria, identifying your resources, and making a no-go decision. So let's unpack these. First step, niche marketing is an intensive growth strategy. No question about it. The goal is to increase your market share by acquiring more high potential new clients. This is a sales business that we're in, and niche marketing just allows us to focus our energies on markets and build a strong brand that allows us to have an edge over our competitors. So selection process, if you already have an existing marketplace, so you want to estimate the potential for growth. Now, if you go to the top there's no growth. The growth is none. You want to maintain your position and considering getting out of that marketplace. If your estimated growth is low, what can you do to stimulate activity within there? And if the growth is high, you want to pursue that aggressively and go after candidates along the way. And so you also want to be able to do that with any market you choose. You want to be able to look at any market, and we're going to look at some resources on how you estimate growth potentials, but you want to look at any particular market and estimate, what is the potential for growth. So let me give you an example. If you were to have a marketplace for video stores that, sells rents DVDs, Blu-rays, higher, that is a no to low growth, or I should say low to none growth. A lot of these places now are just, they're in shopping malls selling secondhand DVDs, not like, 7 years ago when they were flourishing of activity before streaming came along. On the other hand, if you were to target men's grooming places, the men's barbershop industry has been reinvented over the last 4 to 5 years. That is booming. So that is growth is probably low to high, probably, somewhere in the middle there. So you want to look at these marketplaces, look around and start to estimate, and that will give you an idea of how to choose those industries, or if you have one, what you should be doing to drive growth from that. The next thing you want to be able to do is develop an ideal client profile. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're going after things that make sense for you. So an ideal client profile, you have two things there. You have positive characteristics and knockoff factors. So what are the positive characteristics of your ideal clients that you like to have? They pay on time. You can easily reach the buyer. They have challenging problems that you can learn from. And secondly, they're a right fit for your organization. Knockoff factors might be, they place your firm under undue risk. They're slow payers. They're constantly changing their mind. So you want to have, 3 or 4 knockoff factors, 3 or 4 positive characteristics, just so that when you come across someone in your niche market, you can quickly evaluate that in terms of if someone is a good fit or not. And so when you're establishing your selection criteria, it's going to be based on, number one, your interests. If you have a passion for a certain segment in the marketplace, you're going to have a higher interest there in that. So, if your interest is fishing, if your interest is construction, or, I have some clients that are in the sporting industry. That's their niche. They have a high interest in sports, and so they provide insurance for that. They're quite active in that field. The nature of the competition, if there's too many competitors in your marketplace, and may not be a good marketplace because it's going to be hard to stand out from the crowd. Numbers of centers of influences. Centers of influences are non-competing professionals that can provide you with leads, introductions, referrals. They may not be buyers for you, but they can direct the traffic. And so there's great centers of influence out there. They could be accountants, lawyers, consultants, and so on. And so you want to identify, are there centers of influence within that niche market you're going after that you already know that you can establish a relationship with? Fourth, the cost of business development. If the cost of the business development is too high, sometimes that's not worth pursuing. So I'll give you an example. I have a client in the rental market. They do homeowners insurance, renters insurance. Their competitor is always advertising on TV, so their cost of acquisition is right off the roof. Versus my client has people on the ground, feet on the ground, a sales force. And so that can determine, how effective it is to enter that marketplace. And fifth, the cost of learning to become an insider. If my industry, for instance, is financial services, the cost of me learning to become an insider in that is relatively low. I subscribe to the right journals. I have a network. I attend conferences and functions, and so on. If I was to decide tomorrow to go into aerospace industry, I'd probably have to go back to school. I would have to spend a lot of money on learning about aerospace and so forth. So you want to weigh those factors up: interest, nature, competition, center of influences, cost of business development, and the cost of becoming an insider that determines whether that is the right niche market for you. Next, you want to identify your resources and experience. And good question, what resources will you use? Will you be able to use existing resources within your firm already? Or do you have to bring in new staff, a new computer, subscribe to new journals? What resources will you use, and what do they look like? Secondly, what is your current image? Do you have a brand already established there? Do you need to establish a brand? Can you leverage off your brand in another sector? And thirdly, what promotional techniques can you use to stimulate interest? I'm gonna come to that a little bit later on promotional techniques. And are there any organization memberships you can join? Once again, we'll discuss this a little bit further, but these are your resources and experiences that will allow you to quickly decide if that particular niche market is exactly right for you. And finally, you want to make no-go decision. Number one, does it feel right? Does your gut tell you that this is something that you can really do? Secondly, are you willing to commit the time and resources that allows you to stand out from the crowd? Do you have the confidence in your capabilities? And is the niche dominated by one or more competitors? And if you answer no to most of these, then the final question is, should you abandon and choose another niche? But that allows you that's a little checklist there to make the no-go decision. If you can take positive to at least three of those, with the exception of the bottom one. So the first four, if you feel confident on those four answers there, go for it. But if you don't, it's time to take a pause and try something else. I've seen a lot of time, money, and resources wasted on someone that was half committed to a niche market. They've done the printing, they've half-heartedly gone to conventions. A lot of time, energy, and money was wasted when it could be actually, invested elsewhere. So next, you want to develop your insider knowledge. And your insider knowledge is just that you want to be seen as someone special to a special group of people. So you want to look at your selected niche. And if you look at the industry there, you want to examine the key success factors. What is it that they have to do to be successful? There's usually about 3 to 5 things. What are those? You want to learn about the key ratios in that industry. Things like their conversion ratio. Well, I'll give you an example. Financial services. What is your conversion ratio? What is your ratio from employee per revenue? What is your organic growth ratio? What is your acquired business ratio? Those are ratios for particular industries that I work in. Every industry that you work in also has key ratios. Now, Dun & Bradstreet, by the way, produces a book called Key Ratios. It's a reference book you can obtain from your library. That'll allow you to get smart about your industry. IBIS Reports also is another source that will help you to learn the measurements and ratios of different industries that you can use and quickly get smart. You can actually use these ratios to measure who's doing well and who's not. Annual reports also from stockbrokers and analysts is another way. Industry dynamics. What's going on in that industry? Turmoil, the newspaper headlines will tell you that, but generally just following that industry, the trends, speaking to influencers will tell you, what's happening in that marketplace, and the key publications, Dun & Bradstreet, IBIS, Wall Street Journal, the Financial Review for here in Australia, the Asian Financial Times, the Asian Financial Review. These are just some common publications that you might want to just start following wherever you are in the world. And by the way, they make they produce a European version of the Wall Street Journal also. And finally, when you look at the market, that's the industry. When you look at the market, who are the key players? These are your prospective clients. Who are they? What do they look like, smell like, talk like, walk like, and what are their names? And so you can start to build your list from there. So that's developing inside knowledge. And when you have that, you can have an intelligent conversation with a prospective client regarding their needs. So key success factors I mentioned before, current clients can give you, if you have current clients already in a niche, they are a great source of understanding the key success factors. Annual reports, business magazines, going to trade associations, and talking to consultants, advisors, accountants, and lawyers are great people to just learn about what's going on in the niche. What do you need to do? Good question to ask. If I was starting this niche tomorrow, what do I need to do to be successful? And that's the question you ask yourself as you speak to consultants, read the annual reports, and so forth. I mentioned about the key ratios there from Bankers, Dun & Bradstreet. And these are just some additional publications you might want to consider. Company 360 is a Dun & Bradstreet publication. It is available at most libraries. You can subscribe to it personally. It is expensive, but you can do that. ABI Inform Global is another database that's based at libraries also. Press Reader is a free publication. You can subscribe to it, but it also enables you to scan a bunch of business journals. Google Scholar's free, and ProQuest Business is available from the library also. And by the way, these libraries that I mentioned, I don't know, here in Australia and I know United States, I can subscribe to my main reference library, usually be a state library, and it gives me access to all these databases for free. So that's the way I would recommend you pursue these, because a lot of these databases can be expensive. Go to your library and free, and they're actually a rich gold mine of information. Good question. Who do you know? So when you look at your niche market, you want to look at, who do you already know as far as clients? Who do you already have as suspects? People you might have done quotations for before. But when you look back, you find, wow, they're in this niche market I'm pursuing. Current prospects and centers of influences, all that helps you to build your insider knowledge of your existing marketplace. And if you don't have any of these, that's going to make it just a little bit harder. But everyone, you usually have a relative, you have a friend, you have a colleague, you have someone. And LinkedIn is a great way to sort of identify these potential resources on there. Okay, next step 3, we want to get organized to service your niche. And 2 things, you want to build a database and build your library. So get your database in order. To build your database, you want to firstly determine the files that you need. You want to, whether you're going to use a existing contact database, you want to work out, what is it that you need to capture. Identify the fields to be used. And what I recommend there is choose your best clients already, or pull up a database such as Act or Goldmine or Outlook, and look at the fields that are populated there, and use that as a starting point to start to populate your database. Enter any information you have on hand about that niche market, industry, and so forth. Identify missing information gaps, but more importantly, maintain and update your database. This should be a regular occurrence. I recommend at least on a monthly basis, updating your database. If you don't want to do it yourself, you can outsource this. It will take an admin assistant just a few minutes to keep your database updated, or a staff member, but it's vital. You want to set up your library. And this is something that's often neglected by many professionals for your niche market. Every niche has Bibles. The key industry publications they can't live without. Find out what they are. Use your librarian. Your librarians are the most underutilized professionals out there, and they're free. They're in every capital city. They're in every city, every community. Go into your librarian and ask him or her, that you want to get smart about a certain industry. Firstly, they'll get very excited because they don't get asked that question enough. And they will spend the time with you to help you identify resources, tools. There's actually publications that tell you what publications there are in that particular niche market. So in Australia, it's the directories of associations. And it'll list the associations, their publications, their websites, and so forth by industry sector. So that's a Bible. Also, you want to look at major publications read by your clients and prospects. I spoke about some that you should have, but get a hold of those and use those. Thirdly, engagement related material. Any past proposals that you've done, any presentations that have been done, any presentations you have seen done. Collect those. Competitor information. Who are the competitors serving that niche? What's the names? What did it look like? You can start building your own dossier and file on these competitors. That helps you too to position yourself. They give presentations, get copies of their PowerPoint presentations or their brochures. And finally, just the niche data information, the facts and figures about the niche market. That should be your library. This can be set up digitally as well as in hard copy. I do both. So using something like Dropbox or Evernote, you can actually store a lot of stuff in it to be readily at hand, but there are certain things I do have by niche market in a hard copy folder so I can refer to it, as necessary. Okay, so finally now you want to set up your promotional system. A promotional system has 3 main parts to it. Firstly, you want to set up what I call a contact package. And your contact package is just that. It is some people call it a press kit, but it's your basic folder. And this is a presentation folder with a little cutout for the your business card, pockets on each side when you open it up. You want to put in there your capabilities, your biographical sketch, list of your services, case studies, testimonials, newsletter interviews, all those things there go into what I call your promotional delivery system. So that when you're networking and someone asks you to follow up, that you can give them that. These are silent sellers that, they keep going in the background. Also, doing case studies, newsletter articles, and so forth is just a nice way to keep people up to date on everything that you're doing. But after you set up your promotional delivery system, you want to build what I call your niche marketing platform. Now, this has 4 areas to it, and these are the 4. I got a newsletter coming out in just a few days' time. And one of the things in the newsletter I talk about is the different tactics that you can use to draw business. Here are the 4 primary ones. It's networking, relationship leveraging, speaking, and publishing. So when you're building your niche market platform, these are 4 things you want to do. Networking, at trade associations, conferences, and with key influencers. Next, number 2, you want to use it relationship leveraging. That's what your influencers, current clients, and non-competing professionals. What I mean by relationship leveraging, you want to leverage off that relationship to help you gain access to clients. So for instance, in current clients, that means obtaining referrals and introductions. And actually with all those areas, it's being able to obtain referrals and introductions directly from those individuals. The third area there is speaking. And that's, you should be speaking at not only networking at associations, but speak there. Speak at conferences, do pro bono work. You're packaging your expertise and delivering it to a group of people at one time. And that's a very effective way to market. And finally, publishing. I think every professional, their firm should have some sort of newsletter they're doing. It could be monthly or quarterly. I wouldn't recommend anything longer than quarterly. You can also publish in association magazines. So many of the trade associations that you're going to be going after and in niche markets. And by the way, when you're niche marketing, always start with the trade association because that's where you get your entry from. That's where everyone resides. When you start with the trade associations, they're always hungry for material. Publish your articles there. And finally, have a blog. If you don't want to do it, outsource it, but you want to have a blog. And what you do on publishing, you're packaging your expertise to make it available for people. And all this can be repurposed. When you're networking, when you're leveraging relationships, when you're speaking, you can repurpose all this stuff to give it to key influencers. Or sometimes a great article can actually make us become speech. So multi-purposes ways to do this. But the way you convert and penetrate your niche market is by setting up your niche marketing platform. That is the key to start to gain your market share and develop this along the way. So finally, that's niche marketing. There's some ways that here at Corporate Eye we can help you. First thing, as participants on this call, on this webinar, we're happy to give you a free sales plan execution review. So with this, we'll help you identify what objectives you should be focusing on, compare your capabilities with best practices, and help you develop a prioritized action execution list. This is free. So you can either respond to the follow-up email you'll receive in a few days, or just give me a call directly, and I'm more than happy to sit down and talk to you about how to do that and so forth. Keep in touch with me also. On my website, there are articles, there are past webinars, there are tips. You can sign up for a newsletter. There's books. A lot of things are free. Go in there, have a look around, and so forth. Now, just before I wrap up, I just want to make sure, check if there's any Q&A questions. No, we're doing fine there. But I'd like to thank you for participating in today's webinar on niche marketing. This copy will be sent to you shortly, in the next 24 hours or so. But thank you very much. And we have 2 other webinars coming up for Christmas on cross-selling and target marketing. So I hope to see you there. Thanks again for your time and look forward to speaking with you soon.